right, you primitive screwheads, listen up. Boomstick! Boomstick! Primitive screwhead. Boomstick! Primitive screwhead. Boomstick! Listen up.
Welcome to Ash
versus
Evil Dead
versus
Bubba
versus
Catfish.
Groovy, baby.
Groovy for all things Ash versus Evil Dead. Today we will be breaking down Season 3, Episode 6 of Ash versus Evil Dead, Tales from the Rift. Excellently done. I am your host, Catfish.
Hey.
You can hit me up at CJGman67 on Twitter. And with me, as always, used to be Bubba. Now he is Bubba / Kelagos. He's been infected.
Oh, no.
So today he's going to be giving us all new insights from beyond. It's Bubba. Bubba, how can people reach you?
You can find me, Bubba, on Twitter, Instagram, Snapchat, Goodreads, at FittinTrim. That's FITTENTRIM at FittinTrim on social media, baby. Even on YouTube, you can find me at FittinTrim.
Wow, that's your thing, and you're gonna ride it into the ground.
Heck yeah.
I love it. Because what other fit and trims are there? Nobody.
No more.
It's a play on words that you have adopted as your own, and you're gonna ride it into the sunset. But hopefully not too soon.
What do you mean?
Speaking of riding into the sunset, let's give our ratings for tonight's episode, Tales from the Rift.
Well, Catfish, this whole season, my ranking out of 10 has been higher than your ranking out of 10.
That's absolutely true.
I wonder
I wonder too.
If tonight it'll break it. Because for this episode 6 of season 3, I'm going to give it only 7 double P's out of 10.
Double P's?
Well, as everybody knows, double P's are when you have polar Pop-Tarts that haven't been cooked up, haven't been warmed up.
Exactly.
Everybody knows that they're polar Pop-Tarts. If you go to my...
Not everybody. Ash didn't know.
He didn't know how good they were hot. But if you go to my famous WordPress blog, which is... Now, the first part is
Fit
all...
and trim?
No. First part is all one word. Pop-Tarts eaten in exotic locations.wordpress.com. You will see me eating Pop-Tarts around the world.
Around the world.
And they're never cooked. They're all polar. I'm a cold Pop-Tart guy.
They are. And I've been there for some of those, to take some of those pictures myself. Highly honored. I feel so honored at that point.
But only 7 out of 10, Catfish. So after that incredibly... Ring the bell, folks. Gonzo episode last week. This week had a lot of action, but it didn't hook me, and I'll explain why when we do one of our recurring segments later in the show. So 7 out of 10 for me. Are you higher than Bubba or lower than Bubba?
For the first time this season, I am higher than you, Bubba.
Whoa.
However, I was not insane. No. I was not. I gave it 8.
Oh.
What we call... quadruple P's.
Quadruple P's?
Well, as you remember, quadruple P stands for Pablo, professional porthole puncturer.
Damn, Pablo.
So Pablo is taking care of business.
Okay.
And so was I in this episode because I liked it more than you. However, I did have some issues. There was some really cool stuff.
Oh, yeah.
Really cool stuff visually. I don't think anything could have matched with last week's. I mean, last week's was the Deadite fight was just insane.
Yep.
Not so much this week. There was also sort of a kind of a repetitive thing where we've got fights going on in 2 different places. Some of the issues I had... I'm going to talk about in a new recurring segment that we'll do a little bit later called Double B's.
Double B's? Double B's?
Yeah, Double B's. It's what I like to call brandy boners. And that is, I think, mistakes that the show makes because of its inclusion of brandy or mistakes it makes with brandy.
All right.
I've decided to make that a new segment just because I'm tired of, and I'm sure the audience is tired of me complaining about things about brandy. So I'll confine it to one segment called Brandy Boners, and then we'll just move on. But before we do that,
There's nothing that would stop me from getting Brandy boners.
She is a very attractive woman.
Yes.
And as I said, kind of has an 80s feel, so it really brings me back.
Feathered
the curl of the hair.
hair.
Yes, it's so good, so good. First of all, the thing we want to do is we want to talk about what our double L's have to say.
Double L's?
Yeah, our loyal listeners.
Oh, those guys.
Yeah,
and girls.
We get a lot of good feedback from our listeners, and we like to incorporate it here. Bubba, as I search for their feedback, please tell people how they can give us this feedback.
Well, we told you how you can find us on Twitter, people. But also, Ghost Beaters, what we need you to do is go to our Facebook page. That's facebook.com/double P podcasts. That's the word double, the single letter P, the word podcasts with an S on it, podcasts. Facebook.com/double P podcasts. We get so much great feedback there and on Twitter. Any place you can talk to us. We want to be here. We want you to join the Ghost Beaters with us. And I'll go ahead and read the first bit of feedback if that's okay.
Go right ahead.
This one admittedly came in via Twitter. It's from our good friend at Barbasue on Twitter, the Aria of Susans.
Love it.
She gave this episode 4 out of 5, Catfish.
That's the wrong.
That's
the
8
wrong
out of
rating
10.
Scale.
That's 8 out
but
of
she
10,
also
though.
agreed with me. Very good. Very
She
appropriate.
said, now remember, this episode aired on Easter, so she called it Resurrection Day for Kel Kel. Great fight scenes and basement wormholes. Great episode. She loved it.
All right. And our good man, Pat Man, had a couple things to say. First, he said, I am worried, though, that Kelly might be the suitable host for Kaya and not Brandy.
Oh, no.
Mostly since Kelly is heading to confront Ruby, which seems like it could backfire on her with or without the Kandarian dagger. Pat Man was correct. The other thing he was correct about, and drum roll, please. Last week, I asked our loyal listeners to send in what their ideas were for a Branson Minute. We said, what's a Branson Minute? Ash says, I'll do it in a Branson Minute. And that didn't seem to be a phrase that was in the lexicon.
Nah.
So as we sifted through the hundreds of submissions we had, the best one was from Pat Spinagle. He says, hey, I was thinking about the Branson Minute. Here's what I assume is the humor framework. A New York Minute is the usual phrase, which is synonymous with instant. Ash is such an uncultured rube that Branson, Missouri is the most fast-paced cosmopolitan analog he can conceive of. And he says this tracks with his love for Jacksonville, Florida.
Ugh.
So, Pat Man, you will be receiving something special in the mail. Also, a nice signed card by myself and Bubba, which is invaluable.
Invaluable. Let me go to another.
Literally without value.
Unvaluable. Let me go to some great feedback by our good friend at the Uncle Q on Twitter.
Do it.
Oh, we love the Uncle Q. Now, you mentioned Kelagos already, Catfish. He said,
did.
Kelagos was a great nickname that rolled off the tongue. That was back in season 1, Kelagos. And he's like, Kelakaya, not so much. What do you think?
Tough.
What can we name Kelayaya?
I don't know.
Kelayaya.
How about I think what rolls off the tongue better is Kayelika.
Okay. Kayelika, she's come back and she's ready.
And
Ooh.
people, there was, when I also asked people if you could come up with a better name for the kid than Ashy Nashy, and unanimously, no one said anything, which must mean that people loved Ashy Nashy. Thought up on the minute. Now, there is a very dedicated, loyal listener, even though he claims that he listens to other Ash vs. Evil Dead podcasts.
Shameful.
Scott Pike, who always sends us very detailed information. He says, so I was overthinking stuff about last week's episode with stuff concerning Pablo and Proc Williams. He's come to some probable conclusions about possession and what happens to people.
He's come to some Pablo-able conclusions.
He said, we saw that while evil possesses Pablo was doing all his stuff, the soul of Pablo was on some other plane of existence, completely ignorant of what was happening to his body until it was stabbed by the Kandarian dagger. We also saw Brock's ghost soul was completely ignorant of what had happened with his body, both what it did and what was done to it, other than when his grave was disturbed. So from these two examples of people we've seen after possession, not counting Ash, special case, the evil has access to knowledge of the soul's memories and control of the body, but the evil doesn't seem to actually corrupt the soul itself, as in the person's soul doesn't actually become the deadite. It just seems to be connected to it like a spiritual parasite. Now, kind of what's interesting there, though, is that...
Now, this is you commenting.
This is me commenting, right.
On Scott's idea.
What I think is interesting there is that I mean, I sort of buy his case, but on the other hand, Pablo was only in the other world after he passed out, not while he was a deadite attacking. And the same thing with Brock was that, well, he was just gone. We don't know where he was at that time, and he wasn't being a deadite during that time. So
I think Brock was in the bowling alley.
He does say that Kelly was possessed by a different type of evil. Yeah. And he says, here's part 2 of his speculation.
Let's hear it.
Is that while possessed in the real world, the souls of possessed are in a halfway state between the living world and the spirit world, or probably more accurately, the world of deadites and demons. When the deadites' bodies are destroyed, they're dragged back into that world with the demon. Wow, that would be very... Oof.
Now, let me say that Scott gave this episode a ranking, and he beat both of us and... At Barbasue, the Aria of Susan's on Twitter.
10 out of 10.
10 out of 10 chainsaws is what Scott says.
Has Scott ever given it less than full marks for an episode? I mean, I love it. He is all in.
I'm down with
and
Scott.
That's great.
He's a great ghost beater, Scott.
He does have a few questions.
Oh, what are
he
those?
said, where did Ash hear about Dalton's possession and death? Kelly knew, but she didn't tell Brandy, did she? He says, by the way, Kelly... Bad plan. Oh, now he's talking about this episode.
Yeah.
Ash didn't even tell Brandy he was gone. That's a spoiler alert for our new new recurring segment. He said he likes the much more serious tone the season has had for what's probably the final season. Something we'll talk about later on in viewer Catfish reads the ratings.
How many segments does this damn show have?
Well, it's got so many, so we should move right along with it.
Okay.
So let's go to our first recurring segment, which is the groovy line of the week. Bubba, I've got 4 that I thought were good ones. Why don't you tell me your best one, and then I'll tell you my best, and then we'll go through the kind of the runners up.
I have to be honest. Sometimes I take notes and I don't always have a groovy line.
Okay.
I thought this episode had a couple, but the only one that I actually put in my notes was, you had to pick today to learn a new language. That was mine. How about you?
That's great. I didn't even have that one. Here are I do my runners up here.
Right.
I said when he's about to fight, he says, time to suck a little saw.
Aw.
That's nice. I loved the delivery of this line, you know. Pablo comes down in the basement. There's a lot of things he's got to absorb all at once, which is probably why he doesn't notice right away the huge writing all over the wall. He says, what's going on? Who are all these people? And what are you doing in this weird cellar that I never knew you had? My second line of the week, the backup, the one I thought was originally going to be the one was when they say, join us. And Ash says, I'm good. I joined the Elks, which just made me laugh because
I want to join the Elks.
A friend of mine in San Francisco joined the Elks, and the rest of us have all been giving him a hard time about how now he's officially an old man because he joined the Elks.
Oh, I always wanted to join the Elks or the Friars. What do they do? You know, I want to join the Shriners and drive around a little car and wear a fez.
I could tell you what the Elks do. They were originally set up to support kids organizations. So what happens is,
I hate kids.
They have all these groups. From what I understand, the drinks are very cheap at their little clubs.
I'm going to fit it right in.
All the money goes into supporting kids groups, and I can confirm that because I've been to a couple Elks places, which looks like they haven't spent any money on rain decoration in about 40 years. Even the one in Hawaii, right on the beach in Waikiki, looks like it was designed in the 70s. But my favorite groovy line of the week is after he has a hard time killing the demon.
Yep.
What I like to call, I'm going to save it for later on. He says, that's how you kill a demon. It's not as easy as it looks. It did not look easy. So that was where the humor came in that line. Excellent. So now, our Deadite of the Week.
Well, let me go first. Once again, I didn't keep many notes in this.
Okay.
My Deadite of the Week. Now, let me say, this is very tricky. So I am giving it my Deadite of the Week to Gary.
Gary?
Yes. Do you know who Gary is?
I don't know who Gary is.
Gary is the guy, original knight who got trapped in the basement.
Oh, yes.
Because he painted this wall. And if it wasn't for this wall, none of this exciting action would have happened. So for that, Gary, who may have just starved to death and not even actually be a Deadite, Gary, you're my Deadite of the Week.
Well, partially enjoyed and partially was incredulous at the new Knights of Sumeria saying, Gary, he's still here. It's like, Gary's been missing for like 10 years.
Loved
How do
it.
they even know about Gary? Gary's whispered about Gary. I am going to give it to... My Dead of the Week is what I like to call a triple N.
Triple N?
Yeah. Now, sometimes when I use these words, I use a dash. So the second word has a dash in it.
That seems like a
okay. So I call it the nasty knitted together night.
Yeah, boy, that is... I don't even want to go into that at all. You're not talking about Marcus, are you?
I'm talking about the combo.
Well, the main guy was Marcus.
Combo platter. But Marcus couldn't have done it without
Done
the
it by
second
himself,
guy.
right? Without his buddies. Okay. Yeah,
I thought that was really well done. A
lot of puppetry.
I think if I'd have seen that before last week, I think I would have been really impressed with it. But last week's was so good. This one just didn't reach that level. Now, before we talk about it, we're going to talk about this is a new recurring segment, the Double B's.
Yeah, we know what that is.
The Brandy Boners.
I wasn't going to say the second word.
Here are two things that I feel like make no sense in this episode. One, and Scott Pike talked about it, he's so protective of his daughter. This is all he could talk about. Protective of his daughter, protective of his daughter, protective of his daughter. And then he just leaves. Doesn't take her with him. Doesn't say goodbye.
She was in the shower. Come on.
Come on. This is so strange.
You don't disturb a young lady in the shower.
Leave a note. And then the thing that I thought we'd gotten past this part with Brandy.
Okay.
And then it turns out she still believes in Mrs. Previtt. So now we're going to have to still deal with this again. And it looks like based on next week that we're going to have some foo-for-all with that. I don't want to give away too much. So now that we've done most of our recurring segments, let's talk about the episode itself. Now,
yeah, you went 8 out of 10. You still loved it.
I still loved it, and I will say this: it has been done before. But do you remember the name of Sam Raimi's the Western he did?
The Quick and the Dead.
The Quick and the Dead. So he's done this before, but I never get tired of it, and he was even better in this one. In The Quick and the Dead, someone gets shot, and they get a hole through their body, and the camera looks through the hole in their body. Well, this time the camera goes through the hole in the eye hole, the brain hole of Ruby, and I just thought that was really, really cool. There was a funny bit, and I didn't notice it the first time I watched it. When the new Knights show up,
yeah,
they park across the street from Ash's. They're probably about, I don't know, 100 feet away or something, and one of them picks up binoculars to look at Ash, and they're so close to him. It's just, I don't know. I don't know whether that was supposed to be funny or
was
not.
that a different Double B? Binoculars boner.
The other thing that I think, we talked about last week how much fun it was to set up two things and then flash back and forth for them, and they repeated it this time, and so it just was a little bit more obvious.
Okay.
I don't know. What were your feelings about the fight between Kelly and Ruby?
Let me say that it starts off strong. The episode starts off where we're back up in the attic where Ashy Nashy, this baby, is in this gross-looking cocoon.
People love that term.
They are using it out in the streets because they're not using it online.
By the way, Ashy Nashy appears to have grown exponentially.
You know what? Kids grow. That's why you get hand-me-downs.
One thing you'd mention, you're like, this kid seems to grow fast, but he seems to have, once they put him in the bubble wrap in the placenta with the amniotic sac, he seems to have really, really enjoyed that, and he's growing.
All right, but ignore that for now. I want to get to this episode. So, we see this baby Ash in this disgusting cocoon. We reestablish that Ruby and this demon named Kaya have some deal. We're getting to it quick. And then the episode starts off with a bang, literally, as so many times you see these two people come to a confrontation and there's this talk before the fight happens. I love that Kelly didn't waste any time, immediately fires. That gets us to the opening titles. I loved that as a start.
Well, she did do a little monologue before she shot her in the eye.
Very slow.
But sometimes those things can bother me, but it's beautiful because again, it's sort of a cliche, and they played off it nicely.
Did you get confused at all that a dark one can get shot in the head and still keep living? It seemed like the headshot, the head kill, is always what kills the Deadites. The fact that, yes, Kelly slugs her a couple times in the body before she goes for the headshot, yet Ruby still lives. Did you enjoy that? Or is it like...
To me, it seems canon that the only way you can really hurt Ruby is by stabbing her with the Kandarian dagger.
Okay.
So Ruby's different than a Deadite. It needs to be the dagger.
I thought the fight, while it was fun, I thought it went on a bit too long.
It definitely did. I mean, it starts the episode, and then it's still interspersed with the stuff that happens after a whole bunch of stuff happens with Ash. It's still interspersed with that stuff happening with the fight that Ash has. That's a really long time to be going back to this fight.
Well, let me say, do you believe that the fight didn't have as great a stakes? Because even though it is episode 6, I couldn't believe you could kill Ruby or Kelly in this episode. So I kind of wasn't afraid for either of them.
Well, hold on a second.
Well,
because when I said to you, my God, look at Pat Spinagle. He called it right. And you said, no, I knew it too. Didn't you tell me that you had assumed that Kelly would be taken over, that she would become Kaya Kelly?
Yeah, accidentally in the feedback that you read earlier, I copied this thing that I wrote and accidentally made it look like Batman said it.
Oh, my.
I did it in a hurry. So Batman was afraid that Brandy was going to become Kaya. Moving on. So because I didn't think any of them could really die, even though I enjoyed this fight, and I really, really, really loved the grenade in the middle of the fight.
The grenade was great.
But because I couldn't believe any of them...
going back, I agree with you, though.
There was no stakes, and so because of that, it felt like the fight went on too long.
Just kind of marking time with this fight because we know that nothing is going to come out of it.
And as entertaining as it was, if you don't believe anything can come out of it other than Kaya becoming Kelikaya, I can't even say it.
Kelikaya.
It
sounds better. Kelikaya.
It didn't score as well as some of that Gonzo stuff did last week. One thing I will say, since we're just kind of talking through all of the Kelly Ruby / Kaya possession fight right now, is that if you jump to the end of the episode, so Kaya has taken over Kelly. Kaya goes to the Williams household, waits for Ash to show up, and all this time never killed Brandy. Kelly Kaya could have killed Brandy at any moment in this house. The two of them were in there together, but she didn't.
Well, I can only assume, and I was upset with this earlier, but if you assume, like we had to earlier, that there was a reason that Ruby is keeping Brandy alive, that she would have shared that information with Kelikaya, and so Kelikaya is going to keep her alive. It almost feels like, and again, we haven't heard a lot of Ruby's plan. We can only assume things, but maybe it's like having, holding on to a hostage. For example, just in case I might need her to put Ash in a weakened position, let's just hold on to her as a chess piece.
Okay,
I was upset about that earlier, but now I've just sort of accepted it. So just lie back and let it wash over you, Bubba.
Dead Kelly gets stabbed in the gut with a dagger. Youch. Anything else you want to say? We've kind of covered it in kind of this kind of overarching thing. Anything else you want to say about the Kelly Ruby / Kelly Kaya?
Well, it's funny because you say, and I felt the same way, that no one can really die in this episode, but also I think maybe we're informed by what's happened in the past. We thought we'd lost Kelly before.
We thought we lost Pablo before.
And Pablo, That was a real hard one to come back from.
Oh, yeah.
He was
sliced in half, right?
Yeah. He was Pablito A and Pablito B. So neither half of Pablo was tall enough to ride this ride. So, you say nothing happened, and yet presumably here, Kelly's dead and has been gone, and her body's been taken over. Just the fact that just because we're seeing her doesn't mean anything. She is dead and gone. So you don't believe that?
I don't believe we've seen the last of Kelly.
Okay.
In fact, this has come up in some of the online things I've been seeing, Catfish. What is Kelly's last name? Catfish, you're the Evil Dead fan. What is Kelly's last name?
I don't know what Kelly's last name.
It is Kelly Maxwell.
Okay.
What is Pablo's last name?
Pablo Pablito.
Excellent host. No, I noted it because people have been tweeting things like, I love Kelly Maxwell. And I was suddenly like, oh, yeah, that's her last name. They never refer to her as that. So good flash.
Were you just testing me, or is there a reason because of her last name you think she's going to be alive?
No, I couldn't remember. So the fact people were saying Kelly Maxwell, I wanted to see if you remembered. And I didn't actually need to ask you to know you didn't remember.
You bastard. I thought you brought it up because you had a salient point to make.
No salient.
The point we're trying to make here is the problem is it's that you didn't think anything was going to happen, and then something really did happen, but then also it doesn't feel like it's permanent because people keep on dying on the show. And so this is kind of the problem with the show going on and trying to raise the stakes. We don't want these people to die, and yet...
No.
What's your other option? Your other option is having a bunch of people we don't know show up for an episode and then become fodder.
Right, and then you want to become attached to these new characters because you think, they're just cannon fodder.
Right. Well, it's smart that that you see them and you just know. Is there an elk on the wall?
Poor Dalton
that has these people's names on it.
R.I.P. Dalton. R.I.P. Brock Williams. R.I.P. the other characters who I can't think of at this moment.
So important. The character's so important. So I guess that's part of the problem is that, when you do a movie, and again, I'm going to refer to, there's news on that front later on as well. When you do a movie, okay, we're going to do it at this time. It's going to be in however long it is. And when it's over, it's over. It's a complete chapter. When you do a series, you don't know. No. How many seasons are we going to have? So you can't really plan it out, and you can't say, okay, we're going to make people care about these characters, and then we're going to bump some of them off before the end. Because what if they'd bumped Pablo off last year, and then they've got like Pablo hater from way back, and then we have like 3 more seasons. What are we going to do? So that's I think part of the problem. That maybe I've kind of felt this year.
Okay, can I get to one of the reasons why I ranked it only 7 out of 10?
Please.
Now, we talked about him in the fight. I felt like there were no stakes. You couldn't lose either character. I want to talk about this show doesn't have a huge budget. When they do have money, they spend it on things you would see, like fights, choreography, puppets, special effects. They need to, and they're so wonderful. But because of that, some things this show doesn't really have, hasn't had for a while, many locations. So I just want to take you through the other 2 storylines. So the last episode ended. Ash pops open the trunk. There's Ashy Nashy in the trunk. He throws it out. Randy gets behind the Delta. She's like, "Got in, Dad." And so they burn rubber away from the hardware store. And they go back to the house. As soon as they get to the house, what does Ash do? Okay, we got to go back to the hardware store. It's like we're bouncing between possibly 3 locations.
And Mrs. Previtt's house,
right.
Ruby Noby.
Right, but let's get to this.
And the trailer. We had the trailer.
Well, yeah, we're going to get to that. Last week, remember Pablo, he comes back. He's now, El Pablo, El Hef, whatever he is. He's especial.
Especial, Brujo.
Right, El Brujo
I would have thought he would have been Brujo Especial, but he's El Especial.
So
Brujo.
Kelly kisses him there in the trailer. He's like, "I can't kiss you. I've got to leave." Ash doesn't know it yet, but he needs my help. And he runs out of the trailer. When we come back this week, where is he? The trailer. So he left the trailer to, theoretically, the next time we see him, go back to the trailer. At a certain point, go somewhere else. Even if it's just the side of the road, you know.
And then where does he go back to?
The hardware. Well, there are only two places. Well, here, let me flip a coin. Did he leave the trailer and go to the hardware store or Mrs. Brevin's house?
No, I think maybe Ash's house.
Oh, right. He could have walked to Ash's house. That's a good point. Oh, my Lord. So that kind of thing is driving me a bit crazy. Even if, call me crazy, I am a bit of a fan of these new knights. The two we got names on are our R.I.P. Marcus, who becomes your messed up Deadite, and Zoe. Zoe, the leader of the knights.
Very serious. There was actually one slightly amusing line there when they all kneel down. He's like, "You guys get a special on knee pads?"
Yeah. So why don't we go through this story,
Okay.
and it'll tie into Pablo's as well through the whole thing. So it begins with the binocular boner. They are so close to him. Hey, wait a minute. In his bag is a chainsaw. I needed a binocular to see that. Little weak, but we have some father-daughter bonding. Did you like this? You were so tough on Brandy this whole season long. She gives him that non-polar Pop-Tart. What are you thinking about this? They finally, even though she still seems to love Mrs. Previtt, oh my Lord. The father and daughter.
Thank you for your response on that.
The father and daughter are bonding. Do you like that, Catfish?
I do like it. I like it. I want her to be. I want her to be kick-ass too. That's fine. Bring her along. That's good. Just don't make her a complication. The fact that she still likes Mrs. Previtt, and this is going to cause us some problems later on, is something I'm not 100% thrilled about.
Okay. Now, Brandy and Ash, they brought in this fourth character. You know, we talked about, okay, Kelly got possessed by Kelegos, and now this, we don't think she could die. Pablo seemed to die last season, going to die. Can Brandy die?
I think she can die. I think she could become, maybe this is what they're leading to, and they wanted to, have some stakes. So this year he becomes close with his daughter, and then just like his sister, he's got to kill her and cut her head off.
Man, every parent's dream out on the screen.
Yes, indeed.
Okay, so we have this scene, but then we got to introduce these new characters, R.I.P. Dalton. And Ash, he hears them, there's like a dog whistle for Ash. They say, okay, we can close this rift, and then evil will be gone from this world forever. That is like a dog whistle, and Ash will do anything when he hears that, including leave his daughter without a note in the shower.
Right. And yet, and this was another thing kind of bothering me about this episode, he has a very sort of laissez-faire attitude on the way over there. I mean, I understand that I think of Ash as a bumbling hero.
Okay.
Right? But on his way over here, he seems to be a hero who just doesn't give an F.
He's a hero who doesn't want to put too much effort into it.
Well, I mean, that I believe that too, but it's just kind of a bridge too far. Like, let's take care of this evil, and then he's not like heroic. He's like smoking and drinking and whatever, which can be funny, but also feels a little bit off character for me.
All right. Okay, so now we get the infamous flashback. They are here not only to find the prophesized one, but they're also looking for my Deadite of the Week, Gary. Do you want to pour one out for Gary?
Gary, we barely knew you. We've seen you.
We keep seeing you, though.
We've seen you more in flashbacks, but that's because you died a long time ago.
Aw. But once again, here we are. This is it. Let me say this. So we get some more exposition from the knights as they drive across the bridge. Didn't you love seeing that similar-looking bridge to the films that they drive across?
Yeah, no, that's really cool. Apparently, this is a very important bridge because that's how Ash gets from home to work.
And then back from work to home. And then back from work to, there's only so many places he can go. So we get some exposition from the knights.
I tell you, though, it doesn't seem like he's making a lot of money from that store. There's never anybody in it.
It's never open.
Yeah.
You know how much those local commercials cost?
And right, and what about Pablito's Fish and Chips?
Oh, man. Yeah, how do they get any money? So the knights give us this exposition dump, which says, the dark one that betrayed the others, a.k.a. Ruby. Ruby used a necromancer named Kaya to exile the other dark ones. If the other dark ones get free, the war between, I assume, Ruby and Kaya and the other Dark Ones will start a war that will destroy mankind.
Right.
It is said that the prophesized one will have the Necronomicon, and only together can evil be banished from the world forever. I hear that, and I think about how the Necronomicon got on poor Pablo's face last season, and I wonder if Ash doesn't currently have the Necronomicon, but is it Ash and Pablo have to get together, and only together can evil be banished from the world? That's what I wonder if.
Well, I think so. I mean, that's kind of what they've set up, right? That Ash has been all along has been the Hefe, but he needs help from Pablo, which is why he can't die, despite the fact that you're trying to kill him every episode.
Episode.
Now Ash is not too excited to go in. He's like, listen, I'm really the only savior. You don't want to just blow me on this, right? Which now to me seems on brand for Ash. So I guess I should explain a little bit more. I don't mind Ash being a chicken when it comes down to it, because that's on brand for Ash. But for Ash to not pretend like he's being heroic on the way over, that seems off brand for Ash. So that's sort of the difference between how he kind of begs out of it once he gets there, but on the way over, he's usually more brash. We're going to kick ass, da-da-da-da-da. So that's been a kind of a recurring thing for me this year, especially with him dealing with his daughter, where I feel like Ash has done and said a lot of things that feel not ashy to me.
Okay, speaking of that daughter, Brandy, she comes out. Her father has disappeared because he left for the hardware store. Mm-hmm. She naturally goes to one of the other, I guess if you're counting it, 4 locations, the trailer, to where Pablo is going through this box. I can't even be honest. What was this box? Was it his uncle's final possessions? And he sees who?
Well, like
Maritza's full frontal mask.
Sorry, I never went through this. I never had time. All that time,
right?
We were doing stuff.
I was opening a small business.
No, forget that. It's been a long time since we've seen Brujo. They were hanging out in Jacksonville after that. All that time, he never bothered to look through the box.
Never.
And yet carried it around with him.
But he found the mask of Triple F, forgetful full frontal Maritza.
Right, and he's not as fancy. He just goes, naked lady.
No, it's quicker. He should say it. So, Brandy comes out. She's like, what's going on? What's going on? Pablo is getting these visions. Visions, Pablo, of later in the episode. He has a vision of later in the episode.
His visions tell him
it's like next on Ash vs. Evil Dead.
Is in danger. Now, I believe
danger happens in about 10 minutes from when he has it.
But I believe that was the same exact feeling he ended with the last episode. So it shouldn't be surprised. I got to go. Hefe's in danger. And then he comes back and then he's like, wait, Hefe's in danger. No crap.
He's going to have one of these weird moments where he's like, I have this weird premonition. He's fine. For the next couple of hours, he's good. So Pablo leaves Brandy. Brandy keeps getting left alone. She's got to be the easiest victim there could be ever. Pablo races off. Now
And this is probably so that she can hook back up with Mrs. Previtt.
Yeah, you would think.
Yeah.
Right. Now, down in this infamous basement, my boy Gary, he left them a rift to the Deadlands where those infamous Dark Ones have been imprisoned by Ruby and the necromancer Kaya. Whoa, you're keeping this all straight. So, in other words, this is a rift to the Deadlands where the Dark Ones have been imprisoned by Ruby and Kaya. And the Knights want to go to these Deadlands and kill the Dark Ones there. Why not just leave them there? Why open the rift? If they're there, just leave them there.
That is a great question. But it sort of also begs the question, if you really want to think about it, how completely different this plan appears to be from Ruby's plan last year.
You know what? You got enough plans. Did you like this little flashback to what I assume is Evil Dead 2? The last time he went through a rift.
Well, it's hard. It's either the end of Evil Dead 2 or the beginning of Army of Darkness.
I think it's the end of Evil Dead 2.
Yeah. Well, they repeat it again, but I believe you're right that it's they actually reshot it, so it looks different.
In Army of Darkness.
Yeah,
they reshot it. All right, so here they are. They see this writing that my true hero Gary left them. And they want to go to the Deadlands. This makes no sense at all. Except is their thought that the Deadites keep escaping the Deadlands, or the evil forces escape the Deadlands from the Dark Ones, and that causes the evil in this world. And they don't realize that from what we've seen this season is really Ruby causing all the trouble.
Well, you know what they say. Fight them over there so we don't have to fight them here. Although I agree with you.
Yeah,
it makes zero sense. It makes no sense. But let me say this. To be a member of the Knights of Samaria, you have to fail an intelligence test. I'm sorry.
Can you kneel? First question. Can you kneel? Yes. Okay.
Can you kneel? Are you semi-intelligent? Sorry, rejected.
Hey, now, wait a minute. These sweet knights. What do you think they actually do on their off days? What are you doing? What do you think my girl Zoe does on her off days? She's like, I got nothing to do. Now, Pablo.
She goes to the opera, sits in the front row with her binoculars.
So Pablo, he comes up, he starts speaking this evil language of the Book of the Dead. He starts touching the walls. Pablo can open the rift. Why can't Pablo just close the rift forever? Please, Pablo, one time.
Well, it appears to be closed right now. Maybe he'll close it later on. They're going to need, I think you're right. We're going to need Pablo. We're going to need Ash. We're going to need everybody. But he opens it. He's going to open it now. And Ash, this is probably the smartest thing Ash has ever done.
This has been the smartest thing Ash has ever done. They're like, let's go in with Marcus.
Now,
and
he doesn't
like,
explain why no one should go in.
No.
He just explains why he shouldn't go in.
But he's also very smart because as soon as Marcus comes back, Marcus isn't in the Deadlands long. He hasn't gone through the rift long when he's like, get me the F back. And, of course, as soon as he's back, everything should have been pointed at him. Every weapon should have been immediately trained on poor Marcus. These other knights, they had no chance. No chance if they weren't going to man up and get ready to kill their buddy Marcus.
Yeah, I mean, that's the only reason why we thought that was because we knew how stupid of a plan this was and no one else seemed to.
No, nobody would verbalize it. Right.
Ash was smart enough to know not to go in himself, but everyone else should have known. No. Let's say no.
These special effects remind me of Emerald City, a show we've covered. We covered in too great a detail.
Wheat's not chaff!
On the Double P Podcast Network. So let's give it up. Even though this is a dumb plan, it does lead to the fun, awesome Deadite that you love so much. And we love creative ways. You've done how many movies? You've done how many episodes of the TV show? You got to keep being creative with these Deadite battles. And I thought this one was a real good one with the ugly popping boils on poor Marcus's body. Oh, so gross.
Marcus... What I like about Marcus is he seems like a real strong loner type dude.
Oh, yeah.
But he's really at his best when he's with people, when he joins
He's a
people.
team builder, right?
Yeah.
On his LinkedIn page, he's like, I work well with others. I like bringing unity to ideas and groups.
Yeah. It really helps when we can really join together as a team.
Right. He says when something needs to be done, I volunteer to go first. Marcus is the kind of employee you want.
Yeah, exactly.
Mainly because after he dies, you don't have to pay him benefits.
That's also a good point. So then we have, which is probably by most standards, but not our jaded standards after last week.
After last week,
a pretty cool,
wonderful fight.
But the fights. I'll say this. The difference is not a lot of weird things happen in the fight. It's just that the Deadite is really cool. So I didn't find, like last week with the bowling balls, I thought there was a lot of funny things that happened in the fight. I think this fight is pretty standard. It's just the Deadite that's interesting. So maybe that's part of the problem.
Right, and it's interesting when you have, which Ash calls out, hey, there are three of us. Why aren't all three of us trying to kill this guy? Why am I the only one? That is a great point. And so, get in there. Get in there. So you finally get Pablo and Zoe firing at him, and when he's distracted, he gets a little dome replacement.
Yeah. The thing is, when you're working with a team, the most important thing to do is not to lose your head. Keep focus.
Man, he didn't blow his top. He sliced it off. Man, oh man. So, Catfish, I don't want to spoil our court case later, but we're going to ask ourselves how long Zoe has on the show. How long does our final night Zoe have on the show? So that's our court case coming up later. But she survives. So these nights, unlike Dalton and these three guys, the one lady, girls working it for themselves, doing it for the sisters, she
now,
survives.
Ash says you got to figure out a way to shut this down once and for all. What does he mean by that? That it can't be opened by anything, by a a spell or anything like that, incantation. I guess that's what he's saying.
Let me ask you, Ruby and Kaya, this new power couple, they don't want... Right, it's hard to say. They don't want the Dark Ones to leave the Deadlands either. So why would either the villain, quote-unquote Ruby, or the heroes open the rift? They don't want to... Nobody wants these guys.
That is a great point. And yet it seems as if the rift is going to be opened. Or maybe
it's like, hey, you don't want this open? Me neither.
I mean,
let's open it.
Maybe we're just being led down the path, because I think several times we both wanted kind of this fight to expand to the larger world, and it never really does. Like you said, I think that's a budget issue. It won't ever happen.
I don't want to say anything, but don't look too closely at key art for this season if you don't want to have some thoughts about where this might lead.
Okay, I won't. I haven't been looking at any key art, and that's why I don't know what Kelly's last name is.
I was going to say, you have been looking at a lot there.
Is Kelly's last name Key Art? Kelly Key Art?
No, it isn't. So last week we talked about how I love that director so much. This week it was a guy named Reagan Hall. Nothing special. I don't want to beat him up. It's just this didn't have the fun gonzo of last week, so that's why I went down to 7 out of 10.
I'm not sure whether it's... I mean, it's pretty much whoever was responsible for writing and choreographing the fight. The fight just wasn't... Like I said, we kind of got distracted by how cool the monster was. The fight was nothing special.
The post-show, the little special they do on the Starz app, did talk about how this was both fights were tricky for them, and that puppet fight, they had a lot of limitations. It was super cool seeing that giant puppet that Marcus became with the two other knights.
Right.
But that kind of caused some limitations for them on what they could do. This... I feel bad picking on this show because they do so many things well. So, even when I feel some disappointment with an episode, I still want to say 7 out of 10 because it does deliver the goods in so many ways.
Right. Well, what's funny, too, is the producer, Rob Tappert,
our boy,
who is married to Lucy Lawless,
Double L,
indicates in the wrap-up that it's funny when you see her fight because essentially he says that she's a wimp. That's what he essentially says.
That marriage is in trouble. Don't call your significant other.
I don't know if that marriage is in trouble now. All you have to do is look at him and look at her. If she's stuck around this long, she's going to stick around for longer.
Not nice, Catfish.
All right, if you say so. So that's it. So now we're going to do our next recurring. It's all about recurring, and that is Writer Bubba Give Notes. And as you know, we have been workshopping songs the whole season through, and I think we finally have found...
Finally.
I think the issue was I was trying to make it more melodic, and since this is a hard-hitting segment,
yep,
I think it requires a hard-hitting theme song. So here it is.
I can't wait.
Bubba gonna write and give some insight. He got jokes, but also gonna give notes. Writer Bubba Give Notes.
We did burn down the workshop, right? The workshop doesn't exist.
Hard hitting. We burned it down because there's no need. No need to have a different song. That's it.
All right.
Hard hitting the song, and now the notes. Hard hitting Bubba Go.
In this week's Writer Bubba Gives Notes, I'm going to take you and tell you about the place everybody loves to go. Where does everybody love to go? Everybody loves...
Disneyland.
Close, Catfish. Very close to where this note is going. Everybody loves to go to the fireworks factory. Everybody loves to go to the fireworks factory.
And smoke.
Seeing fireworks blow up and explode is so awesome, man. When these fireworks explode, it's great. It's crazy. But you know the thing about the fireworks factory?
What about it?
The thing that makes a fireworks show so great is actually tied to the two things leading to the trip to the fireworks factory.
What are those things?
Meaning...
Brushing your teeth?
Yeah. Boring stuff. Your life isn't filled with fireworks. So the fact that when the fireworks go off, it's like, oh, wow. Plus, at that firework factory, what are they doing? They're doing a lot of mundane stuff. We got to put this flash powder in this grenade. Like there's work that goes into it.
I'm a little confused. Are you saying people go to the fireworks factory to see a fireworks show? It seems like it'd be dangerous to do one at the factory.
They go to the fireworks factory. They're like, let's go to see this show at the factory itself. And they don't realize that why they enjoy it is because it's so different, number one, from their mundane teeth brushing life.
Got it.
And number two, because a lot of work went into this fireworks show at the factory to make it so cool. And so what happened in today's episode, once again, who am I to give
Tales from the Rift.
These slightly little notes. But in today's episode, we followed up on last week's episode, and we immediately begin with Kelly going to fight Ruby. And this was a fun fight. In the post-show extra, they talk about how much work went into this fight. But why didn't this fight have teeth? It wasn't just because viewers like me may think, well, you can't kill Lucy Lawless, a.k.a. Ruby. You can't kill Kelly. This fight has no teeth. Why did it really not have teeth? That wasn't the problem with it. Because not enough work went into it. I'm going to have slight spoilers for Star Wars Episode 7, The Force Awakens, not the most recent Star Wars film, The Last Jedi, but going back to The Force Awakens. There you had a lightsaber fight at the end, which ended up in a draw. Nobody won. Kylo Ren escapes, Rey escapes. Spoiler for Star Wars The Force Awakens. But what they did to set that fight up was they laid the groundwork. They had Kylo Ren, spoiler alert, kill Han Solo. Ooh, that makes the audience and our heroes really hate Kylo Ren. Then they have Kylo Ren run his lightsaber down the back of Finn, Rey's good buddy, somebody that audience likes. So the audience is like, oh my God, that son of a gun. So the audience wants our heroes to beat this jerk who just killed Han Solo and injured Finn. And it's like, let's get it on. And so even though the fight ends up in a draw, with Rey doing very well, but a draw, it's okay. The fight was especially good because the work went in to set it up, to get our emotions ready. What work went into setting up this Kelly versus Ruby fight? I think very little work. Mm-hmm. We even had, in this episode, Ruby say, you were the one I hated the least. And that's exactly right. In season 1, Kelly and Ruby, the animosity between them, they didn't have much interaction. They didn't really work much together until the very end of season 1. In season 2, Kelly and Ruby really seemed like partners, right?
Well, Ruby kept trying to convince her to go off on her own, and we thought she was trying to break them up.
They weren't really trying to kill each other. Now, admittedly, that was a different Ruby because there's these two strands of Ruby.
That's the thing. This is a completely different Ruby.
But this Ruby and this Kelly, what interaction have they really had at all? This season or last season? They had a little bit at the end last season, but this season, had they even really had a scene together until now?
Right.
And so if you didn't put in that work, then even when the fireworks go off, they're not as strong. So even though the fight between Kelly and Ruby was great, and it did have, things I loved, like blowing through somebody's head and grenades, and then a shocking, not too shocking twist of, Kelly getting Kaya'd. Because they didn't put in that work, these fireworks went off, and they weren't as great as they could have and should have been. So that's why you got to put the work in. You got to, have the mundane, and you got to put the work in for the fireworks to really pay off. Writers, you got to do that. You got to have, some build up to a fight. And it didn't have to be in this episode, but it had to be this season. That's why I believe this fight didn't hit as strong as the last one. Still good, didn't hit as strong, and that is Writer Bubba's notes.
All right, before we do our court case, we've been talking about this season a little bit about ratings.
Oh, yeah.
Here we are now, episode 6. No word on whether it's going to be renewed, and usually these things get renewed during the season, for the next season, during the season. That's the way these things do it. And in fact, you see people respond right away. Like, this happens in all entertainment.
Oh, yeah.
I believe it was 2 days after Black Panther was destroying all records. Like, oh yeah, we're going to do a second Black Panther. Roseanne debuted to amazing ratings.
Immediately got renewed.
2 days after that, got renewed for even more episodes for next season. So the question is, I wondered, is there somewhere I can look at the reviews to see, give us a hint of why we haven't heard anything about renewal?
Yep.
Well, I looked at this one space, and it said, now again, I don't know, it doesn't say whether these are live numbers or live plus 72, whatever, but I presume that these are, their numbers they're showing for last year are the same as they're showing for this year.
Okay.
I hope. So the second season of Ash vs. Evil Dead averaged a 0.16 rating in the 18 to 49 demographic.
That actually sounds pretty good.
That's 308,000 viewers.
Considering that actually still sounds pretty good.
Now remember, there's been a delay between season 2 and season 3.
Oh yeah, over a year delay.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So, as a comparison, episode 1 of season 3 had a 0.10. Episode 2.07. Episode 3.08. Episode 4, which was 0.06, and I presume this is maybe this does reflect maybe some later viewers, because probably people were like, oh my god, it was so great. Last week's episode got a 0.10 again.
Oh, good.
So that still, however, is slightly more than half of last season's. Now,
good.
I also looked at someone talked with Bruce Campbell, and I don't know when this was.
Okay.
Because they do say, actually, this was the end of February, where he first said, or somebody said they thought they would know he said he'd expect to receive word by the middle of March. And as we know, we're far past the middle of March,
April,
and we haven't heard anything. But he does say, interestingly enough, that he says if they cancel the series, he says the franchise might end up continuing via another Evil Dead movie. So that would be fun and interesting. Presumably they could do something that was, cheap enough that, they could even distribute it on video on demand, etc.
I wonder how that would work, though, as I've asked before. Actually, on that podcast, you weren't able to make Catfish. I would wonder if Starz owns characters like Ruby and Kelly and Pablo. Like, are they intellectual properties now of Starz because they were made for Starz and Starz series, or are they still intellectual property of Sam Raimi?
Well, it all depends on. This is sort of kind of how the sausage is made behind the scenes. It used to be that you'd have a production company that would just sell the show to a network.
Yeah,
and then that
Renaissance Pictures, right? We assume with this,
right? And that company would also, negotiate for the rights when it went into syndication. But what's happened more and more recently is that the networks themselves are getting into owning shows. And what's interesting is because they own the shows that a network owned are usually given a little bit more leeway to continue even if they're not great, because the network itself will make the money, any additional monies, syndication monies and DVD monies and stuff like that. So if two shows are about the same and one of them the network owns and the other one doesn't, well, they're definitely going to give preference to the one that they own. Oh yeah, because they're going to get more of the money. So I would guess that they were smart enough to hold on to the rights that Sam Raimi and Rob Tappert were smart enough to hold on to these characters. Okay, but either way, they could go on and do another movie without these characters. It doesn't seem to me that. I mean, for me, depending how they end this season, it would almost be better to just move on. Let's just do Ash in another scenario.
Well, I'm just looking at the final credits here, and it says Starz Entertainment, LLC, is the owner of the copyright in this motion picture, and that means the show. So we shall see. We want a renewal. Like, let's get a renewal. Go Speeders, let's do this.
Right, but I do not think that is going to happen.
Well, it's tough when you're a pay channel here in the United States. We know we have international listeners, but here in the United States, Starz has two things. They want to get people to sign up, and I do think a fair number of people, maybe not enough, but I do think a fair number of people have signed up for Starz because of this show. They also want to keep the subscribers they have happy. And to be honest, I always wonder if there's cross-pollination between Counterpoint or Counterpart, excuse me, a great show that Starz just did.
Well,
is there cross-pollination between their Starz show Power, between Outlander, between these shows they're promoting now, like Vita and Howard's End? Is there really cross-pollination between the audience
you were
and Ash
talking about
versus
that
Evil Dead?
when I wasn't here, and you were saying, it's funny, the shows that they're promoting. Of course, Ash vs. Evil Dead has no idea what shows they're going to be promoting, but it is funny that they're promoting Howard's End in front of Ash because those seem like two totally disparate audiences. And I feel like I've seen Howard's End, but no Counterpart, which to me, if you like things...
Well, it airs. It
interesting-
specifically airs right now before Ash vs. Evil Dead Counterpart did, so...
Right. Still, I think you could you would want to promote that and maybe Outlander, which is also has a little twinge of like sci-fi in it, rather than Howard's End. I mean, who the heck is watching Ash vs. Evil Dead and is like, my God?
Well, what about their show?
I can't
Power?
wait for another. I can't wait for another version of Howard's End. Jeez, thank God. I've only seen
you are a hater.
six different. I've only
let's go
seen
to the court.
six different versions of Howard's End.
Oh my God, let's get in.
All right, let's go to the court case.
All rise. This is the case of how long Night Zoe shall live on Ash vs. Evil Dead. Entering the courtroom now, Prosecutor Catfish
Dum dum
and defense attorney
dum
Bubba.
dum dum dum
Prosecutor Catfish,
dum dum.
you hear the case before you. How long will Night Zoe live?
Your Honor, I am going to purposely make my brief to the court brief. It was kind of a pun there, Your Honor. I don't want to go on too long because I don't think we should be talking about this for too long because, Your Honor, my prediction is Zoe will be gone within 15 minutes of episode 7. She will be gone, Your Honor. We have seen... Now, we had Dullard around for a while, for a few episodes, just to sort of keep things in the mix. But we killed all the rest of these stupid knights this episode, and they're really around just to cause a little trouble. They were just here this episode to get him to open this thing, and now that they're gone, she will now that that's been opened, she will shortly be gone, Your Honor. I say Zoe will be hitting those Z's within 15 minutes of the next episode, Your Honor. There is no sense keeping her around. They got too much to do with all the other regular characters, and she's just fodder for the grist mill, Your Honor. Fodder. Just like I am. I'm a fodder.
Defense attorney Bubba.
Yes, Your Honor. Thank you very much. I am going the complete opposite way from Catfish here, Your Honor. I want the record to note that he did say she would be dead within 15 minutes of episode 7. I think Zoe makes it at least to episode 9, and I would not be surprised if she makes it to episode 10. They introduced these knights with Dalton at the beginning of the season. He's dead. We got more knights in this episode. They're all dead except Zoe.
Dead.
These knights, call me crazy, must have a purpose. And that purpose is going to be fulfilled in some way, somehow. If Zoe, the last standing knight, is killed 15 minutes into the next episode, what purpose have these knights served at all?
I said, Your Honor, to get him to open up the portal.
None. I think Zoe shall survive. Why? Well, Kelly is now Kellikaya. So technically, Kelly really can't have in-depth conversations with Ash, Pablo, or Brandy, quote-unquote, the good guy team, because she's always going to be Weasley and helping plan for the bad guy team. So who are the good guy teams going to plan with? Just the 3? Pablo, Ash, and barely there Brandy? No. I think Zoe will fill that role. I think she adds diversity and inclusion, which the show has always needed. So Zoe, the knight who lived at least 3 more episodes. The defense rests.
Well, Your Honor, I just want to say I'm impressed with this case, Your Honor. As defense attorney Bubba is tired of losing to the jury, so now he's just gone for a prima facie truth case. He just wants to win this one on the facts, Your Honor, without having to sway the jury.
Yes, that's true, Catfish, but I do want our ghost beaters to get in and get their votes in now. There is a huge swath of time between 15 minutes into episode 7 and the end of episode 9, meaning the rest of 7, all of 8, and the beginning of 9.
Your Honor, I'd like to enforce Price is Right rules for this.
Oh, without going over it. All right, so Ghost Beaters, I want you to tell us how you think this is going to go. Because is Zoe a no-goey, or is Zoe here to stay at least another hour? Go to our Facebook page, facebook.com/double P podcast. That's the word double, the single letter P, the word podcast, plural. Facebook.com/double P podcast. Heck, just go there and like the page, please. We want you to join with us in this final, possibly final ever, 4 episodes. The final 4, possibly, of Ash vs. Evil Dead.
Wow, Your Honor. Wow.
The case rests.
Thank you, Your Honor. Thank you. Oh, short and sweet there, Catfish.
Yeah, well, it was short anyway. All right, well, we will join you next week.
Next week.
For possibly the last season, Hang Your Head in Shame, Episode 7.
Whoa.
Episode 7 of this great show. And we will talk to you next time on Ash
versus
Evil Dead
versus
Bubba
versus
Catfish
versus
Brandy
versus
Zoe
versus
Dullard.
Dalton, not Dullard.
Dalton.
Oh, man. R.I.P. Dalton.